Mishpatim. The Torah portion of Mishpatim lays the groundwork of the biblical justice system, with many different laws and punishments. One such law, the law of the Hebrew slave, his 6 years of labor, and his freedom in the 7th year, points towards the Messianic Era and our dedication to God. In the Messianic Era, the Messiah will be king over the whole world, and Isaiah 11 verse 3 and 4, it says that he will not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither decide after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the land. And he shall smite the land with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And in Isaiah 9 verse 7 it says, that the government may be increased, and of peace there be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it through justice and through righteousness from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts doth perform this. Believers in Yeshua are already acting underneath the authority of that future kingdom. As we study the Torah's commandments, we learn about the rulings of King Messiah, the ultimate champion of justice. It is as it says in Isaiah 56 verse 1, Thus saith the Lord, Keep ye justice, and do righteousness, for my salvation is near to come, and my favor to be revealed. In Exodus 21 verse 2 it says, If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. The 6 years of labor a Hebrew slave must go through symbolizes what is happening to the Jewish people in the world today, with affliction, subjugation, and exile. The release of the Hebrew slave in the 7th year symbolizes the end times and the final redemption. The freedom that's received in the 7th year corresponds to the 7th day of the week, as it says in Exodus 23 verse 12, 6 days thou shalt do thy work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. This also corresponds to the sabbatical cycle of years in Exodus 23 verses 10 and 11. And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and gather in the increase thereof, but the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie fallow. This pattern of time reflects the very beginning of creation, where God created things for 6 days and rested on the 7th day. Some sages in the Talmud viewed the 7 days of creation as a broad outline for the history of humanity, as it says in Psalms 90 verse 4, For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past. According to this view, each day referred to a different millennium of history. Different rabbis had different opinions, but they generally agreed that the 7th day referred to the 7th millennium, the 1,000-year Messianic Era. The early believers in Yeshua held a similar view. The book of Hebrews speaks of the Shabbat as a taste of the Messianic Era. The book of Revelation speaks about a coming millennium of peace. The Epistle of Barnabas reveals early traditions of the followers of Yeshua, including one about Shabbat and the 1,000 years of the Messianic Era. My children, attend to the meaning of the expression, He finished in 6 days. This implies that God will finish all things in 6,000 years, for a day with Him is as 1,000 years. And He Himself testifies, saying, Behold, today will be as 1,000 years. Therefore, my children, in 6 days, that is, in 6,000 years, all things will be finished. And He rested on the 7th day. This means that when His Son, coming again, shall destroy the time of the wicked and judge the ungodly, and change the sun and the moon and the stars, then He shall truly rest on the 7th day. If a Hebrew slave didn't want to go free after 6 years of labor, for his master had treated him well, and had given him a wife and children, the Hebrew slave was to say, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I will not go out as a free man. The slave forfeits his right to go free after 6 years, and his master takes him to a doorpost and pierces his ear with an awl. The Torah literally says in Exodus 21 verse 6, and he shall serve him forever. This passage alludes to the Messiah's devotion to God, and our devotion to the Messiah. The numerical value of the words Hebrew slave in Hebrew have the same numerical value of the word Messiah. It is as if the Messiah said in Psalms 40 verse 6, "My ears you have pierced." The case of the permanent slave also speaks to our own servitude to the Messiah and the Torah. If we are to love our families, our children, and our spouses in the proper way, we must first love our master. This is why the servant says, "I love my master, my wife, and my children," in that order. Yeshua alludes to this idea in Matthew 10 verse 37. "He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." Rabbeinu Ephraim in Malchut Mashiach has something to say about this topic as well. The slave plainly says in the world, "I love my master, so I engage in the Torah from the love of the Holy One, blessed be he. And I love my wife, that is to say, I love the Torah, and I love my children, that is to say, I love my disciples. I will not depart from my master even in the grave." Thus the rabbis of blessed memory said that the disciples of the sages do not rest because they serve God forever, even in the world to come. As it says in Psalms 84 verse 7, they go from strength to strength. God commanded us to put a mezuzah on the doorposts of our homes, in which there's a scroll with the words of Deuteronomy 6 verses 4 through 9. When a slave has taken to the doorpost, he entered into covenant under the words, in Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, "And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." Rabbeinu Ephraim said, "His master shall pierce his ear with an awl, so that he will not turn away from hearing the words of Torah." We too give our lives in service to God forever. Rabbeinu Ephraim says, "And he shall serve him forever." This refers to the resurrection of the dead, for it is a world without end. As it is written in Isaiah 66 verse 22, "For just as the new heavens and the new earth which I shall make will endure before me, declares the Lord, so your offspring and your name shall endure." The Torah portion of Mishpatim, specifically the law of the Hebrew slave, has multiple connections to the Messiah and the Messianic era.